Good evening, Bharti. Good evening, Vaishali. Please ping me if I'm audible. Yes, please ping me if I'm audible so that I can start the session. Okay, thank you, Vaishali. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Unacademy, India's largest online learning platform. Let's crack UPSC CSE English. Now, before I talk upon the topic of arrival of Europeans and Governor General Part 2, let me introduce myself to the people who are new on the platform. My name is Alok Ojha. I have done my engineering from Pune. I have been associated with the field of UPSC since past 6 to 6.5 years. I hold the experience of going through various stages of civil services exam. I also hold the experience of giving CDS SSB twice. I hold the experience of exams like CAPF Assistant Commandant and Uttar Pradesh PSC. I'm involved into the field of teaching since past 4 years. And in these 4 years, I have mentored more than 10,000 students for UPSC. Now, there might be a question in the mind of an aspirant why one should prefer Unacademy as a platform for online learning. So here are the ample of reasons why one should prefer Unacademy as a platform for online learning. First of all, you'll have daily life classes on the Unacademy platform. Unacademy offers you assimilation of top and dynamic educators of India on a single platform. You can directly interact with the educators. You can clear any sorts of queries or doubts with the educators. Second most important aspect, which I personally believe is very important for an aspirant, that is developing competence or competitiveness. Now, why competence or competitiveness is important? Let us understand this with the help of a small example. Each year, approximately around 8 to 9 lakh forms are being filled up for UPSC, out of which 3 to 4 lakh aspirants appear for the prelims exam, out of which 10 to 11,000 students qualify the prelims exam, out of which 3 to 4,000 make into the mains list, and finally 1,000 odd make into the final list. If I filter it down, how many aspirants filled up the form? It was approximately around 8 to 9 lakh. How many aspirants made into the final list? It was approximately around 1,000. So here an aspirant needs to understand one important fact, and that is one aspirant is competing with 800 to 900 other aspirants, and that is why it is necessary for him to develop that sort of competence or competitiveness. So one of the best way to develop competence is to go through live tests and quizzes through which an aspirant can analyze his preparation. Okay, then all the courses on Unacademy platform are highly structured in nature, and there is a proper timetable through which the courses are being conducted, and one can have unlimited access to the courses on Unacademy platform. These are the few top and dynamic educators of India from whom you are going to learn through. These are the courses being offered on the Unacademy platform. Subscribe to Unacademy and use my code AKOUS. I repeat the code AKOUS. Now, I'll talk about iconic subscription in short, within very few seconds. Like you are preparing for civil services. Now, many a time there might be a question in the mind of an aspirant: am I preparing in the right direction? Am I using a right strategy? Am I using the right resources? So, iconic subscription is like you will have a personal mentor for that. Now, that mentor would be guiding you on the strategy that needs to be followed for the preparation, the resources that needs to be adopted while preparing for civil services, the strategy of answer writing, which is very important for preparation during civil services, because we might have a lot of knowledge, but that knowledge is highly worthless until and unless we are able to produce that knowledge on a piece of paper. Isn't that so? Because the only interaction between us and the examiner is our answer. Because neither we know the examiner nor the examiner knows us. And in that case, the only piece of interaction is our answer. So, answer writing is an art, it is a skill, it is a technique. And that personal mentor would be guiding you in that process. So, This is all about iconic subscription. Now, if you, what we say, choose me as your mentor. So basically, I would be guiding you through your entire preparation for civil services. Please use the my code AKOUS. I repeat, please use my code AKOUS. Good evening, Smita. Good evening, Uvasri. Good evening, Shweta. Good evening, Aisha. Good evening, Sarfaraz. Saujanya, good evening. Good evening, Shashank. Good evening, RK. Good evening, Uva. Okay. Now let's get started, guys. Now, for the people who are new on the platform and who are attending my session for the first time, let me tell you one thing. Like, it is believed by an aspirant that history is quite a lengthy subject, and history is all about rote memorization of the fact. Getting the points clear? But that is not the truth. We are going to follow a very simplistic pattern throughout the course of history, and that pattern is SFC: story, fact, and concept. Because I personally believe it is quite easier to remember the fact and the concept if it is associated with a story. If you see my previous sessions, you will come to know that how story plays a very major role in understanding the basic concepts and the facts. Okay, now I have already covered Arrival of Europeans part 1, but still I'll be talking about a short background about it. It would be basically a sort of revision for you guys. Okay, I'll be talking about the background just in 5 minutes. Okay, now listen to me. Now, it is said that around 14th-15th century, there were two major mafias of the world. One was Portugal and the other was Spain. And both had the vision of conquering the entire world. Both had the vision of acquiring new and new territories and colonize these territories so that they can exploit the resources of that territories and make huge amount of money. Now, basically it is said that Portugal came to Southeast Asia and India, and the first person to come from the Portuguese side was basically Vasco da Gama. Now, how did Portuguese came to know about India? Now it is said that since the ancient times, since the time of Indus Valley civilization, India had a very flourishing trade with the other civilizations of the world. And India traded in all sorts of items at that time. Now basically it is said that around from 7th century AD, Arabs dominated the trade of the Central Asia. Arabs took the good from India. They took the goods to two Italian cities, Venice and Genoa. And from the Italian cities of Venice and Genoa, it was spread into the entire market of Europe. So basically, everyone knew about the goods of India. But the only link between the India and the European market was Arabs. So for the first time, Vasco da Gama came to India in 1498 at a place called as Calicut. Now here he met a local ruler whose name was Zamorin. Now Zamorin had a lot of expectations from Vasco da Gama that he's going to bring a lot of gifts for him. But basically, he did not stand up. Vasco da Gama did not stand up to the expectations of Zamorin. And basically, the purpose of Vasco da Gama for coming to India was basically to acquire permission to set a factory in India. But he had to go empty handed. Now, meanwhile, Arabs filled up the ears of Zamorin that all the Portuguese are pirates and they have come here to loot the local Indian rulers. Few years later, another Portuguese person whose name was Pedro Cabral came to India. And again, the purpose of Pedro Cabral was to establish factory in India. Now, Pedro Cabral, he established a factory in India and then he had a war with Arabs. Getting the points clear? Few years later, there was another person who came to India. In the form, now there were lot many factories of Portuguese establishment in India. Lot many factories were established on east coast and the west coast of India. And to manage these factories, Portuguese sent their first, what we say, viceroy to India. And the first viceroy was Almeida. Now, After that, one of the major viceroy that came to India was Albert Q. Now, basically, it is said that he acquired the region of Goa, and Goa became the epicenter of all the activities of Portuguese in India. He is also called as cultural ambassador between India and Portugal because his purpose was not to plunder India. His purpose was to establish permanent colonies in India. In fact, it is said that he said to his soldiers that you should marry Indian girls so that you can establish your families and the colony in India itself. So Goa became the epicenter of all their activity. In fact, Albert Q, what we say, banned sati for the first time in the region of Goa. After that, there was arrival of Nuno Kunha. Okay, by now there was a drastic change in the political dynamics in the region of Europe. Now there were many other powers which came into vogue. Initially, if you remember, I've told you there were only two major powers, that is Portugal and the Spain. But by now, there were many other powers like Portugal, Spain, English East India Company, Dutch, French, and so on. Getting the points clear? Now there was a mudslinging. There was a great game for expanding and acquiring more and more territories. There was a game of colonialism being practiced in the region of Europe. Getting the points clear? So, after Portuguese came to India were the Dutch. But were not that successful. And after them came basically English East India Company. English East India Company, it is a multinational corporation. It is a company of 125 shareholders. It is also referred as John Company. And the first person from English East India Company to come to India to acquire the permission basically to start a factory was William Hawkins. William Hawkins came in the court of Jahangir to acquire the permission, but he was completely denied the permission. And the reason behind that was Jahangir was always bribed by the Portuguese rulers. But few years later, another person or another agent from English East India Company came to the court of Jahangir, and his name was Captain Middleton. Okay, first was William Hawkins, second was Captain Middleton. Now, Captain Middleton acquired the permission to establish a factory at Surat, and from now onwards, there were many establishments that were constructed by English East India Company on the east coast and the west coast of India. Now, you should remember one thing, that English East India Company initially came to trade with India. But with the passage of time, it is said that they started ruling over the India. They started dictating terms to Indian rulers. Now, it is said that there were many governor generals like Warren Hastings, basically. Getting the points clear? Now, it is said basically that initially the Englishmen had to take the permission from the Nawabs and the Mughal rulers. But later on, the English East India Company or the Britishers became so powerful that they started dictating terms to the Mughals and the Nawabs. Nawabs and the Mughals in the coming time started living on the mercy of English East India Company. Such was the condition of Mughals and Nawabs during the tenure of English East India Company. Now, to what we say, run the administration of English East India Company. Getting the points clear? There were many governor generals being appointed. Now listen to one major important thing. There have been ample of times question on the governor generals in UPSC prelims exam. And it is a very, very important section for the prelims exam. Time and again the question have been asked about the governor general. I'll give you an example as well. Now, there were three major presidency. Bombay presidency, Bengal presidency, and Madras presidency. Listen to me very carefully. Bombay presidency, okay? Bombay, Bombay, Bengal, and Madras. Now, each presidency had a separate governor. Listen to me very carefully. It is a very, very important concept. There were three presidency, and the administration of all the three presidencies were looked after by a separate governor. It simply means that there was a governor for Madras, there was governor for Bengal. There was a separate governor for Bombay. But the governor of Bengal was designated as Governor General of Bengal, and the governor of Bombay and Madras were subordinated to Governor General of Bengal. In very simple words, the presidencies of Bombay and Madras had to report to the presidency of Bengal. Getting the points clear? Now it is said that the there was only change in the designation in the coming years. In very simple words, the governor of Bengal was referred as Governor General of Bengal. Few years later, he was designated as Governor General of India. Again, few years later, he was designated as Viceroy of India. So Bengal was a very, very important presidency among all these three presidency. Okay. The first Governor General that came was Warren Hastings. Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of Bengal, and we have learnt in the past session about the Warren Hastings. Then came a blue-blooded aristocrat whose name was Lord Cornwallis. He is also known as father of policing in India. He is also known as father of civil services in India. Getting the points clear? Then, after him, basically, there were another major rulers like Lord Wellesley. Now, Lord Wellesley started a very, very important system, and that system was subsidiary alliance system. Okay? Hope so. The points are clear till that. Now, I am going to start with another important Governor General, that is Sir George Barlow. Okay? Now, any question, any query, any doubt till so far, so that I can move further. Good evening, Harpriya. Good evening, Ram Kumar. Yes, Satya. Approximately 90% of the modern India was over on Saturday. Hope so the points are clear. Please let me know so that I can move further, guys. Okay. Now let me start with another important Governor General whose name is Sir George Barlow. Now listen to me very carefully. Vellore Mutiny of 1806 occurred during his tenure. Okay. Now what is Vellore Mutiny all about? In very, very simple words, Vellore Mutiny is a precursor to Revolt of 1857. Many students or many aspirants know that Revolt of 1857 is the first war for India's freedom struggle. Getting the points clear? I would say one sentence, I would add just one word into that. It is the first major war for India's freedom struggle. There were many wars prior to this, and one among them was Vellore Mutiny of 1806. Now, Vellore Mutiny of 1806 occurred during the tenure of one of the Governor Generals whose name was Sir George Barlow. Now, what is Vellore Mutiny all about? Please listen to me very carefully. Now, it is said that the British Indian Army majorly composed of Hindus and the Muslim. And among the Hindus, there were majorly Brahmins and there were Muslims basically. Now, Brahmin usually used to wear a sacred thread that is called as Janeu. They used to have a tilak on the forehead. Muslim usually wore the turban basically. Secondly, Muslims had a beard. Now, there was a local commander whose name was Sir John Cradock and the other was Lord Hodown. I repeat, Sir John Cradock and Lord Hodown. They gave a very foolish order. Now, these orders were the Hindus cannot wear the caste mark, they cannot apply the tilak on the forehead. Muslims completely need to shave their beard. They need to completely shave their chin. They cannot wear that holy turban or the holy cap. So basically, Hindus and Muslims felt that they were getting Christianized. It was a sort of forceful conversion into Christianity. This was thought by the Hindus and the Muslim. Getting the points clear? Now, one of the Tipu Sultan's son, whose name was Fateh Haidar. So Fateh Haidar gave a backing to the Indian soldiers, and there was a small mutiny in the region of Vellore. Getting the points clear? Now it is said that many European soldiers were massacred. Getting the points clear? Now it is said that the mutiny was suppressed, and the mutiny was suppressed by one of the rulers whose name was what we say. The mutiny was suppressed. Okay, and after suppressing the mutiny, few of the soldiers were imprisoned, and there was a fair trial being conducted through the court. And in that trial, it was said that six were blown. In very simple words, they were taken before the guns, they were taken before the tanks, and they were blown. Five were shot with the pistol, eight were hanged, and five were given the life imprisonment. Getting the points clear? Still, it can be said that what we say, Vellore Mutiny of 1806 is a precursor to Revolt of 1857. Getting the points clear? Like, basically, it was a fight for the first time between the British Indian Army and the what we say British officers. Getting the points clear? And it is one of the major mutinies that occurred during the tenure of what we say Sir George Barlow. Hope so the points are clear, my friends. There have been a question in the prelims exam, a very simple question. Vellore Mutiny of 1806, which was a precursor of Revolt of 1857, occurred during the tenure of which Governor General? So it basically occurred during the tenure of Sir George Barlow. Getting the points clear? Is there any query? Is there any sort of doubt? So that I can move further? Yes, please let me know. Any question? Is everything clear? So that I can move up with the next Governor General. Good evening, Shashidhar. Yes, please. Is everything clear? Okay. Let's move on with the next important Governor General, that is Lord Minto I. Now let us understand about Lord Minto I in detail. Now Treaty of Amritsar was signed during the tenure of Lord Minto I. Now what is Treaty of Amritsar all about? Let us understand. Now there was a local Sikh ruler whose name was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Okay, there was a local ruler whose name was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Now it is said that Maharaja Ranjit Singh followed the policy of aggressive expansion. It is said that his territories expanded from Khyber Pass, that is on the borders of India and Afghanistan, to certain areas of China, and to the north of river Satluj, which is a left bank tributary of river Indus. So basically, he followed a very aggressive policy of expansion. Listen to the story very carefully. Okay. Now it is said that his boundary, southern part of the boundary, extended till northern bank of river Satluj. Now he had acquired the region of Lahore. Then later on he acquired the region of Amritsar. Now he had the vision of conquering the region to the south of river Satluj. As I have told you previously, his southernmost boundary extended till northern bank of river Satluj. But now he had a vision that he wants to cross the river Satluj and acquire the territories in the southern part of the Satluj region. But the problem was the southern bank of the Satluj river, completely all the territories were British territories. Getting the points clear? So basically it is said that Lord Minto I, there were two major reasons here. Please try and understand. Lord Minto I wanted to enter into treaty with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The first purpose of entering into treaty was, please listen to me. The first purpose of entering into the treaty was basically that if they enter into the treaty, Maharaja Ranjit Singh would only stay till the northern part of river Satluj. He would not expand to the southern part of the Satluj river. First reason was that. And the second thing was French and Russia. Listen to me very carefully. The France and Russia were trying to expand their territories. And in the name of colonialism, they had targeted India. So, if Maharaja Ranjit Singh enter into friendship with English East India Company, they can easily have a watch on French entry, or they can easily have a watch on the Russian entry. Why? Because English East India Company would be informed by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who will become the friend of English East India Company. So these were the two major reasons why Lord Minto I wanted to enter into treaty with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Okay, so initially Maharaja Ranjit Singh sent Sir Charles Metcalfe to enter into what we said, to go and have a negotiations with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. But Maharaja Ranjit Singh was hell bent to expand his territory. He continuously followed the policy of imperialism, and he denied what we say entering into the treaty. So there was no option left for English East India Company. Getting the points clear? And like they had no option apart from fighting a war or apart from fighting a battle with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So what did Englishmen do? English did one thing. English planned a conspiracy against Maharaja Ranjit Singh with the help of other local Sikh rulers to the south of Satluj River. And in that case, English East India Company was quite successful. Okay, so they defeated the complete confederacy of English East India Company, and the local Sikh ruler defeated Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And now Maharaja Ranjit Singh had to sign a treaty of mutual friendship. They had to sign a treaty of perpetual friendship with English East India Company. Getting the points clear? And that treaty, as per this treaty, basically, what were the clauses? First thing, neither the British is going to interfere in the internal administration of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, nor Maharaja Ranjit Singh is going to interfere in the internal administration of the British. In very, very simple language, in very simple words, no one is going to interfere in each other's administrative affairs. First part of the treaty. Second part, Sikh kingdom or Maharaja Ranjit Singh will stay till the northern part of river Satluj. They are not going to cross the river Satluj and acquire the territories to the south of river Satluj. This was accepted by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And the third thing was, the Maharaja Ranjit Singh can have a control of the region of Kashmir and Peshawar. The region of Kashmir and Peshawar would not be overlooked by the Britishers. So this was a treaty basically signed, getting the points clear, during the tenure of Lord Minto I. And this treaty is basically called as Treaty of Amritsar. Getting the points clear? This treaty is simply called as Treaty of Amritsar. Hope so the points are clear, my friends. And this treaty was signed during the tenure of Lord Minto I. Hope so the points are clear. Getting the points clear? There can be a question being asked in the UPSC prelims exam that Treaty of Amritsar was signed during the tenure of which Governor General? So it was basically signed during the tenure of Lord Minto I. Hope so the points are clear. Yes, Aisha. Like you have asked me a question about Sir George Barlow. Like basically, listen to me very carefully, Aisha. Basically, it is said that Vellore mutiny occurred during the tenure of Sir George Barlow. Getting the points clear? And basically, the soldiers revolted against the local commander in chief. Getting the points clear? And these soldiers were supported by one of the Tipu Sultan's son, whose name was Fateh Haider. Hope so, Aisha, I have made your point clear. Did you understand that? Okay. I'll repeat the point again about the what we say Lord Minto I. Treaty of Amritsar occurred during the tenure of Lord Minto I. So what is Treaty of Amritsar all about? There was, now listen to the story properly so that all your doubts would be cleared. Okay. Now Basically, it is said that, listen to me very carefully. There was a Sikh ruler whose name was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Maharaja Ranjit Singh followed the policy of imperialism. Now he had an aspiration to conquer the entire region of the northern part of India. Okay? His boundaries extended from Khyber Pass in the northwest to China in the east, certain regions of China. And in the southern part, his boundary was basically what we say the northern part of River Satluj. Now he had conquered the region of Lahore. He had conquered the region of Amritsar. Now he had the intention and the vision to conquer the region to the south of River Satluj. But the territories to the south of River Satluj belonged to the Britishers. So Britishers wanted to contain this. So they wanted to enter into negotiations with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So a negotiation was planned with Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and there were two reasons for that. First thing, French and Russia, getting the points clear, France and Russia were trying to extend into India. So by entering into the treaty with Maharaja Ranjit Singh, they can have a watch on the French entry and the Russian entry into India. First thing, getting the points clear. And the second major thing, getting points clear, the south of River Satluj would remain intact in the hands of the Britishers. So there were the two major reasons for signing the negotiation. But negotiation could not reach a proper conclusion because Maharaja Ranjit Singh was not ready for that. Getting the points clear? So basically it is said that Maharaja Ranjit Singh was not ready for that, and Britishers now planned a conspiracy against Maharaja Ranjit Singh with the help of local Sikh rulers. And in that case, Maharaja Ranjit Singh lost the battle. And after that, he had to sign a treaty, and that treaty is referred as Treaty of Amritsar. As per this treaty, the Britishers and Maharaja Ranjit Singh are not going to interfere in each other's administrative affairs. Second major aspect, the what we say, Maharaja Ranjit Singh is not going to expand his territories to the south of River Satluj. And third major thing, the Peshawar region of Pakistan and the Kashmir region of India would be taken by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and Britishers would not be acquiring that. This is nothing but Treaty of Amritsar, which occurred during the tenure of Lord Minto I. So the points are clear, my friends? Yes, please. Okay. Now let's move with Lord Hastings. Now listen to me very carefully. Lord Hastings is also referred as Lord Moira. And basically, it is said that Treaty of Sagoli was signed during his tenure. Now, what is Treaty of Sagoli? Please listen to me very carefully. Now, Gurkhas were ruling in the region of Nepal. Okay? Now, Gurkhas also followed the aggressive policy of expansion. Now, Gurkhas highly underestimated the power of English East India Company or the British English East India Company. So now they decided to expand their territories into India. So now from Nepal, they entered into the region of Tarai, that is certain parts of the region of Bihar, and they also entered into the region of Kumaon, that is Uttarakhand. So Gurkhas acquired the region of Uttarakhand, certain region of Uttarakhand, that is Kumaon region of Uttarakhand, and certain regions of Bihar. Getting the points clear? Now at that time, Lord Hastings was the Governor General basically of Bengal. Okay. Now they had recently, basically it is said that recently these people, English East India Company had acquired the region of Awadh and the region of Gorakhpur. Getting the points clear? So they came to know that basically Nepal or the Gurkhas are following the aggressive policy of expansion. And now they wanted to enter into they wanted to acquire the entire India. So to contain them, Lord Hastings dispatched an army. And after dispatching the army, all the region of Kumaon and the Bihar was reacquired by the Britishers. After that, certain areas of Nepal was also acquired by the Britishers. And a treaty was signed with the Gurkhas. And this treaty is called as Treaty of Sagoli. I repeat, this treaty is called as Treaty of Sagoli. The name is Sagoli because it is a small village in the region of Bihar. Getting the points clear? In that case, Gurkhas also had to pay a war indemnity. Getting the points clear? Gurkhas also had to pay a war indemnity to the English East India Company. What is war indemnity? In a very simple words, whatever losses that Britishers had, what we say, accrued due to the war, that loss also had to be paid by the Gurkhas. Getting the points clear? So, in very, very simple words, getting the points clear? In very simple words, Treaty of Sagoli was signed during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Hope so the point is clear. Then, Third Anglo-Maratha War occurred during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Now, let us understand this concept in a very simplistic format. No, Kajal, Maharaja Ranjit Singh did not die in this battle. I'll be talking about Maharaja Ranjit Singh's death in later part. Okay? Now listen to me. Third Anglo-Maratha War occurred during the tenure of Lord, sorry, it occurred during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Now what is Third Anglo-Maratha War? Now there were something called as Pindaris. And who are Pindaris? Pindaris were nothing but band of plunderers. What is a plunderer? In very, very simple language, plunderer nothing means lutera. Getting the points clear? Now it is said that these Pindaris were sponsored by local Nawabs, they were sponsored by Mughals, they were sponsored by Marathas against the Britishers. Okay? Now basically it is said that Pindaris had created a havoc in entire central part of India. Okay, Pindaris had created a havoc in the entire central part of India, and these Pindaris were majorly patronized by Maratha rulers. Now, after the decline of Marathas, or when Marathas' power started declining, Pindaris started attacking the British East India Company. They started looting the resources of English East India Company. They started looting the money. They started looting or plundering basically the resources, guns, ammunition, weapons of English East India Company. Now, English East India Company came to know that these Pindaris were patronized and sponsored by Marathas. So, in indirect words, it was a sort of battle between Marathas and English East India Company. Why? Because these Pindaris were being sponsored by the Marathas. So, getting the points clear. So, basically, they said that Britishers attacked the Marathas at various places, like at a place called as Khadi near Pune, Sitabaldi near Nagpur, and Mahidpur near Indore. I repeat, Khadi near Pune. Getting the points clear. Britishers attacked Peshwas or the Marathas at Khadi near Pune. Then Britishers attacked Bhosles, who were the part of Maratha kingdom, at a place called as Sitabaldi near Nagpur. And they attacked Holkar, who were also the part of Marathas, near Mahidpur, which is near Indore. And in all the places, British emerged victorious. And this is nothing but Third Anglo-Maratha War, which occurred during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Is this point clear? Okay. If you remember Lord Wellesley of the past session, I have told you one concept of Lord Wellesley. That Lord Wellesley introduced Press Censorship Act 1799. And what was that act? Now, basically, French were what we say propagating. They were doing a propaganda against the Britishers in the newspaper. And these propaganda hugely impacted the trade and the profit of the English East India Company. And to contain that, to stop that, Lord Wellesley had come up with the act. And that act was Press Censorship Act. Getting the points clear? It was a Press Censorship Act. It simply means that before publishing anything against the Britishers, getting the points clear, it needs to be shown to the Britishers what you are publishing. If it is derogatory against the interest of the Britishers, it would not be published. And this act came during the tenure of Lord Wellesley. But when Lord Hastings came into the power, he abolished this act. Getting the points clear? He abolished the Censorship Act which was introduced in 1799 during the tenure of Lord Wellesley. Why? Because Lord Hastings believed one thing. Media is the only channel or basically press is the only channel of interaction between the masses and the government. The masses or the people come to know about the policies of the government, come to know about the loopholes of the government through newspaper, through media, through press. And basically, the government come to know about the people, their need, the policy, getting the points clear from the media. Are you getting the points clear? So media acted as a channel between the government and the governed. So media should be given the complete freedom. This was the thinking of whom? Lord Hastings. That is why he abolished the Press Censorship Act 1799. Hope so the points are clear. Now, it is said that during that time, initially, there were hardly any newspaper of what we say local language, and there were more than 10 to 12 newspapers of English language. During the tenure of Lord Hastings, first vernacular newspaper came into India. It was a Bengali newspaper and it was referred as Samachar Darpan. Getting the points clear? First Bengali newspaper or a first vernacular newspaper. What do you mean by vernacular? Newspaper in the local language. Getting the points clear? First vernacular newspaper came during the tenure of Lord Hastings, and that newspaper was Samachar Darpan. Hope so the points are clear. Moving to the next part. Now, there are three types of revenue settlement at that time, or land revenue settlement. First was Zamindari system or permanent settlement. Second was Rayyatwari system. And third was Mahalwari system. If you remember the last session, I've talked about Zamindari system and permanent settlement. Zamindari system or permanent settlement came during the tenure of Lord Cornwallis. Now, what is Zamindari system or permanent settlement all about? Listen to me very carefully. In this, basically, it was called as permanent settlement. Why? Because the revenue was fixed or the tax or the lagan was fixed for the next 10 years. I'll give you a very small example. Suppose I am a peasant, I am a farmer, I am a cultivator. Okay. Now the government has fixed a tax of rupees 10. I'm giving you a small example so that you can understand the concept. Okay. Suppose the government has a fixed the tax as rupees 10 and the tax would be fixed for the next 10 years. In very simple words, I have to pay rupees 10 annually for the next 10 years. Suppose I have a produce worth rupees 50 for the first year. I have to pay just rupees 10. For second year, I have a produce of rupees 20. Still, I have to pay a tax of rupees 10. For the third year, I have a produce of just rupees 5. Still, I have to pay a tax of rupees 10. Since the taxation system was fixed, it was permanent. That is why it was called as permanent settlement. Now, why it was called as Zamindari system? Because, listen to me very carefully. English East India did not collect the rent directly from the peasants or cultivator. There was a middleman between the English East India Company and the peasant. And that middleman was a zamindar. In very simple words, zamindar collected the taxes from the peasant and gave it to the English East India Company. Okay, I'll give you a very small example. Suppose 100 rupees is the tax annually. Okay, getting the point? Sorry. If a peasant earns rupees 100 and 70 rupees is the tax annually. Okay, so from that 70 rupees, listen to me very carefully. From that 70 rupees, 89% went to the company and 11% was kept with the zamindar. Getting the points clear? And zamindar exploited the peasants a lot. Why? Because he had to extract a lot of money from the peasant. And this system came during the tenure of Lord Cornwallis. Now, this system did not work a lot. Why it did not work a lot? Now, many a times it might happen that if I'm a peasant, okay, now I do not have the money to pay the taxes. Getting the points clear? So how can I pay it to zamindar? If I am not paying to zamindar, how will the zamindar pay to the English East India Company? So many a time it happened that many peasants became landless. Why? Because their land was forcefully acquired by the Britishers. And many zamindar lost their zamindari rights. Why? Because they could not collect the rent from the peasant. Because if they are not getting the rent from the peasant, how will they pay it to the English East India Company? Okay? Then during the tenure of Lord Hastings, there was a new concept. Getting the points clear? And that new concept was Rayatwari system. Getting the points clear? Now, Rayatwari system was also followed during the tenure of Akbar. What is this system all about? Listen to me very carefully. Rayat basically means peasant, and it has come from a word. We are going to see all this in detail. It has come from a word called as Rai. Rai basically means an average. Getting the points clear? An average would be paid by the peasant basically as a tax. Getting the points clear? And there is no middleman in the form of zamindar. In very simple words, the tax or the lagan or the revenue would be directly collected by the English East India Company official. There would be no system of middleman between the English East India Company and the peasant. Okay? Now listen to me very carefully. Very, very carefully. It is a very conceptual thing. Now, I'm talking about zamindari system. Okay? Please understand this. It is a very conceptual thing. Listen to me very carefully. Suppose in zamindari system, I'm a small peasant. Okay? My land is not that fertile. Still, I have to pay a tax of 10 rupees. Getting the point? Listen to me very carefully. I am a peasant. My land is not that fertile. My produce is just 10 quintals. I have to pay a tax of 10 rupees. Okay? There is another peasant or there is another farmer whose land is much better than me. His produce on the same size of land is 25 quintal and he is paying rupees 10 as a tax. Then there is a third peasant or a cultivator. Getting the points clear? Whose land is highly cultivable. It is highly fertile and his produce is 100 quintals and he is paying a tax of rupees 10. So isn't this a sort of injustice to me? Getting the points clear? This sort of injustice was tried to remove in the Rayatwari system. Now basically land was categorized into three parts: good, bad and average. The tax on the land which was quite fertile was very high. The tax on the land which was average tax or a medium tax. And the land which was completely barren, they had to pay a very little tax. So this system is called as Rayatwari system, which came during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Hope so the points are clear, my friends. So, what all things occurred during Lord Hastings? Treaty of Sagoli was signed with the Gurkhas during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Third Anglo-Marathas and the suppression of Pindaris occurred during the tenure of Lord Hastings. The Press Censorship Act, which was introduced in 1799 by Lord Wellesley, it was abolished by Lord Hastings now. The first vernacular newspaper in the form of Samachar Darpan. It was a Bengali newspaper. It came during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Okay? And Rayatwari system of land revenue settlement came during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Hope so the points are clear, my friends. Yes, Abu. I'm going to teach each and every. There would be a separate slide about all the battles and the war. Getting the points there. There would be a separate slide. There would be a separate session just about the battles. Okay, Abu? Hope so the points are clear, my friends. Did you understand each and everything? Is there any doubt, any query? Hope so the points are clear in a systematic fashion. Yes, Hindu College was also constructed. Yes, Satya. Yes, Vaishali, please let me know your question. I couldn't get your question. Okay, I'll start with Lord Amherst. Now let us understand about Lord Amherst. Now, the first Anglo-Burma War occurred during the tenure of Lord Amherst. Now listen to me very carefully. The first Anglo-Burma War and Barrackpur Mutiny both occurred during the tenure of Lord Amherst, and both are correlated to each other. Please listen to me very carefully. Both are correlated to each other. Now listen to me. Now, there was a country called as Burma, which is nothing but Myanmar. Now, Myanmar had a vision initially to conquer the region of Thailand. Thailand's ancient name was Siam. Okay? But Siam or Thailand was a very good friend of China, and China was a powerful country. So Burma dropped the plan of acquiring Thailand. Why? Because if it attacked Thailand, it would be supported by China. Getting the points clear? So there would be a complete loss to the Burma. Now, again, like the Gurkhas of Nepal, the Burmese underestimated the power of English East India Company. Okay? And now they, what we say, try to attack India, and now they try to acquire more and more colonies in India. So they entered into northeastern part of India, and initially they acquired the region of Manipur and Assam. Okay? Now at that time, Lord Amherst was the Governor General of Bengal. Now he came to know about the attack that was planned by Burmese. Okay? Now listen to me very carefully. As soon as he came to know that they have acquired the northeastern part of India and now they are entering into the region of Bengal, immediately Lord Amherst dispatched a army. Getting the points clear? Army was dispatched through land route. And secondly, another army was dispatched from the sea route so that from both the sides the Burmese could be contained. Getting the points clear? And it is said that Burma's army was defeated. Now it is said that after defeating the Burmese army, a treaty was signed between English East India Company and Burma. And that treaty is called as Treaty of Yandabu. I repeat, that treaty is called as Treaty of Yandabu. And now what is Yandabu is a small village in the region of Burma. Now what is that treaty all about? As I've told you, Manipur and Assam was initially acquired by the Burma. So it was again reacquired by the Britishers. Secondly, certain region of Assam were also taken by the Britishers. Certain region of Burma or Myanmar were also taken by the Britishers. And one of the major aspect, these people, what we say, Burmese had to pay rupees 1 crore as an war indemnity. Getting the points clear? Britishers said that because of the Burma, we have suffered loss of men and material. And who is going to pay for that loss? So we are going to accrue that losses from the Burma itself. So Burma had to pay 1 crore rupees as a war indemnity. And this is nothing but Treaty of Yandabu. Now let us correlate with what we say Barrackpur Mutiny. What is Barrackpur Mutiny all about? A very important mutiny. Please listen to me carefully. I have told you when Burmese acquired the northeastern part of India. Okay. And Lord Amherst came to know about it. So Lord Amherst dispatched an army through land route as well as sea route. Now listen to me very carefully. When an army was dispatched through sea route, it was considered by Hindus against their tradition. Why? Because for Hindus, crossing the sea means losing their caste. They call it as a kala pani. Getting the points clear? If we are crossing the sea, and it was specifically a social taboo among the Brahmins at that time, they believed that if we are crossing the sea, we are going to lose our caste. We would be outcasted by our Brahmins. Getting the points clear? And they call it as a kala pani. Okay? Now basically the sepoys revolted against a local what we say soldier whose name was Binda. Now around 200 it is said that basically Britishers came to know about it, that again in under the leadership of Binda, the soldiers have revolted. So there was a British officer whose name was Sir Edward Paget. I repeat, there was a British officer whose name was Sir Edward Paget. He thought that before it takes the form of Vellore mutiny, we should suppress it. So more than 200 sepoys were killed. Binda was captured and his body was hanged to a peepal tree. Getting the points clear? Now it is said that near that peepal tree, a temple is dedicated, even in the present day. A temple is dedicated to Binda, and that temple is called as Baba Binda Temple. And the temple's deity is Lord Hanuman. Getting the points clear? So entire Barakpur mutiny occurred during the tenure of Lord, what we say? It occurred during the tenure of Lord Amherst. So if anybody asks you, was revolt of 1857 the only first revolt of what we say on a mass level? No. Prior to that, we have two more revolts. And one was Vellore Mutiny of 1806 and second was Barakpur Mutiny of 1824. Hope so you understood this. Yes, Sarfaraz, very good. Burma got independent only in 1948. Yes, Saurabh. Siam is nothing but the ancient name for Thailand. Okay? 737. Yes, Satya. Why that ruler was called as Lord Moira? Because it was a sort of a nickname for that person. There is no specific reason for that. It is a sort of a nickname. Okay. Yes, Satya. Have I answered your question? Yes, guys, please let me know. Are the points clear? Did you understand this? Now, there can be questions like Vellore mutiny occurred during the tenure of. So, Vellore mutiny occurred during the tenure of Sir George Barlow. First vernacular newspaper Samachar Darpan came during the tenure of. It was during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Then, who Rayatwari system of land revenue settlement came during the tenure of. It was during the tenure of Lord Hastings. Press Censorship Act 1799, getting the points clear, was abolished by. So it was abolished by what we say Lord Hastings, and it was brought into effect by Lord Wellesley. Got the points clear? Then Barakpur mutiny occurred during the tenure of. It occurred during the tenure of Lord Amherst. Hope so the points are clear. Shakuntala, please do not get confused with Warren Hastings and Hastings. Both of them are different entities. Getting the points clear? Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of Bengal. Getting the points clear? Please do not get confused with the name. Okay? Hope so, Shakuntala, I've answered your question. Okay. Now let us understand about Lord William Bentinck. Very, very important one. Okay, now let us understand. I have told you in the start of the session itself that there were three major presidency: Bombay, Bengal, and Madras presidency. And there was a separate governor for each and every presidency. The governor of Bombay was referred as Governor of Bombay. The governor of Madras was referred as Governor of Madras. And the governor of Bengal was designated as Governor General of Bengal. Okay? And Governor General of Bengal, it is said that basically he was what we say superior to other two governors. In very simple words, the presidencies of Bombay and Madras were subordinated to the presidency of Bengal. The governor of Bombay and Madras had to report about the administration to the Governor General of Bengal. Okay? The first Governor General of Bengal was Warren Hastings. Now, who was the Governor General of Bengal was later on designated as Governor General of India. So, the first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. Please note down this fact. The first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. So, did you understand this? The person who was the Governor of Bengal would be designated as Governor General of Bengal. And later on, few years later, he was designated as Governor General of India. So, in very simple words and simple language, Governor General of India was also the Governor General of Bengal. Got the points clear? So the first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. Okay? Now let us understand about Lord William Bentinck. Now it is said that when he joined the service, when he became the Governor General, the condition of exchequer was very weak. What is exchequer? Treasury, in very simple words. The administration was very weak and there was a lot of expenses on the administration. And the government's revenue was a deficit of 1 million rupees. In very simple words, there was a negative, what we say, growth of minus 10 lakh rupees. Getting the points clear? So now it was the responsibility of Lord William to cover that, William Bentinck to cover that losses. So immediately he came up with a new system. What was that system? Immediately the salaries were reduced of the officer. For example, if I'm a servant of the English East India Company and if my salary is rupees 100, it was brought down to 60 or 70 rupees. Getting the points clear? And it was basically for time being. Why? It was basically on temporary basis. Till the revenue losses are covered, each and every civil servant would be paid a bit of revenue. In very simple words, certain amount of revenue would be taken from the salary as a part of accruing the losses or covering the losses. He also abolished the system of double batta. Now, what is the system of double batta? Please listen to me very carefully. It is a very important concept. Now, listen to me very carefully. Suppose I am a soldier who is recruited into the Bombay Army. Okay? Now it is my duty to serve in the Bombay Army and not on pan India basis. Now, suppose if the Britain is having a war with France, okay, I would be taken to France. I would be taken to European countries to fight a battle against the France. Why? Because I am the part of a British Indian army and it is my duty to serve anywhere they take me. Okay? But I was recruited into the Bombay army. So what will Britishers do? Britishers will also pay me incentive. Apart from my salary, getting the points clear, I would be paid incentives to fight the battle against France. And that is called as double batta system. So as soon as William Bentinck came into power, he became the Governor General. He immediately abolished the system of double batta. Got the points clear? He immediately abolished the system of double batta. Okay? Then, opium was a commercial crop. Now, what is commercial crop? Let us understand this. There are two types of agriculture: subsistence agriculture and commercialized agriculture. Suppose if I am a farmer. So what is subsistence agriculture? In this agriculture, I will produce only those crops which are necessary to sustain my livelihood. Okay? But what is commercialized agriculture? Commercialized basically means these crops have a huge demand in the national and international market. And after selling these crops, I would accrue a lot of money. Okay? So cotton, sugarcane, opium, jute, all these are commercial crops. I can earn a lot of money by selling these crops. So opium was also a commercial crop which was cultivated in Malwa. Malwa is southern part of Madhya Pradesh. So taxes were imposed, heavy taxes were imposed on cultivation of opium. Okay? Then, getting the points clear. Then comes basically, initially if you remember, one of the Portuguese governors or viceroy whose name was Albuquerque. He had banned the sati in the region of Goa. Now it is said that Rajaram, there was a social reformer whose name was Rajaram Mohan Roy, and he is referred as champion of press rights. He is also referred as champion of women's rights. So he basically sensitized the masses about the plight of the women, about the plight of the what we say suppressed section of the society. And with the efforts of Rajaram Mohan Roy and William Benting banned the sati in the entire region of Bengal presidency. And anybody who will practice sati would be heavily penalized. He would be put behind the bars. Getting the points clear? So on 4th December 1829, William Bentinck banned the practice of sati in the entire Bengal presidency. Please mind my words, it was in the Bengal presidency, not all over India initially. It was banned all over India in a gradual manner, not all together. Getting the points clear? In fact, Marathas also banned sati in their region. Getting the points clear? Then, one of the major problems that William Bentinck had to face was suppression of thug. Now, listen to me very carefully. Okay. Now, do you know what is the meaning of thug? Thug means dakat, daku in Hindi. So, there were many daku or dakat or thugs in the central part of India, specifically in the northern part of Madhya Pradesh. Okay. Now he was very worried about now William Bentinck. Now it is said that already they were suffering a huge amount of losses. Already they were trying to cover up the losses. Okay. And these thugs, basically these dacoits, they used to capture their trains. Not trains. They used to capture their what we say the buses or the transport system, whatever they were using for. Okay. They used to what we say loot their money. They used to loot or plunder their armory. Getting the points clear? So William Bentinck was fed up of the thugs. So he appointed a special officer whose name was William Henry Sleeman. Please listen his name. William Henry Sleeman, a special officer was appointed to suppress the activity of thug. And a special department was created for that. That is Thuggy and Dakati department. Okay? Now, William Henry Sleeman was a very smart man. He was a very intelligent personality. Now, what did William Henry Sleeman do? He started one program which is called as King's Evidence Program. Listen to me very carefully. He started one program which is referred as King's Evidence Program. And what is King's Evidence Program all about? Any thug who would what we say become the evidence of the government, his what we say punishment would be minimized. Secondly, he would be incentivized. Getting the points clear? And he needs to tell basically the name of his gang member. He need to tell the hideouts. Getting the points clear? He need to become the evidence of the government in very simple word. Getting the points clear? So he started this program, King Evidence Program. And when all the information was revealed, all the thugs were captured once and they were put behind the bar. Getting the points clear? So a separate jail was created for the thugs. Getting the points clear? And this jail was established at a place called as Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh. And this jail was specifically for the thugs. Getting the points clear? So William Henry Sleeman is credited with suppression of thuggy in the central part of India. And there is a village in the name of Sleeman which is referred as Sleemanabad. Getting the points clear? Okay. Now, listen to me very carefully. If any new territory was acquired, it was majorly added into the Bengal presidency. So Bengal presidency was overburdened with the administrative process. So William Bentinck came up with a new suggestion. And that suggestion was basically, if any new territory was acquired, okay, that new territory would be placed under a separate commission. There would be a commissioner being appointed for that new territory. Okay, entire Bengal presidency was divided into 20 divisions, and for each division a commissioner was appointed, and that commissioner would be directly reporting to William Bentinck. So the administrative process got easily smoothened up. Getting the points clear? administration could function in a very simple format. Hope so the points are clear. So he also experimented with reforms in the law system. So basically, what we say various Sadar Diwani Adalat, which is civil court, and Sadar Nizamat Adalat, which is criminal court. It was established at Allahabad. Okay. Now, local languages were used in the lower courts, and English was used in the higher courts instead of Persian. Okay. Initially, Persian language was used in the courts. Why? Because Mughals were ruling prior to Britishers. So Persian language was used initially, but later on, certain changes were made. In the lower court, what we say local language was used, and in the higher court, English language was used. Okay, then why, like why these judicial reforms were introduced? Because the entire system had become quite expensive. There were many courts established, and these courts were burden on the administration. Rather than solving the cases very steadfastly, they were becoming a burden on the administration, and the system was quite expensive in nature. Okay, that is why these judicial reforms was undertaken by Lord William Bentinck. Hope so the points are clear. Now, one of the most important aspect was Indus Navigation Treaty came into effect during the tenure of Lord William Bentinck. If you remember, a Treaty of Amritsar was signed. Getting the points clear? Treaty of Amritsar was signed with whom? Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Now, as per Treaty of Amritsar, Maharaja Ranjit Singh became an ally or a friend of English East India Company. Getting the points clear? Now, as I have told you that Russia and France both were practicing or both were trying to colonize India. Both were basically following the policy of imperialism and colonialism. They were extending their territories. So basically, English East India Company was afraid that Russia could come into India. Okay, so basically, Indus Navigation Treaty was signed between William Bentinck and Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And what is this treaty all about? River Satluj should be opened up for navigation so that English East India Company can keep a watch on the Russian invasion, so that it could prevent the attack of Russia or entry of Russia into India. Got the points clear? Then, if you remember about Lord Cornwallis, I told you about Lord Cornwallis that initially anybody can become a collector, anybody can become an SP just on the basis of recommendation. But Lord Cornwallis introduced a proper scrutiny process. He introduced an examination for entering into the civil services, for entering into the company's service, which was referred as Indian Civil Service at that time. Okay, but the only point was basically only English were allowed to enter into the civil services. Indians were not allowed to participate in the civil services. Lord William Bentinck laid down the foundation, or he laid down Indianization of public services. Now, why Indianization was there? Please try to understand this concept. For example, I am a civil servant who is from Britain. Now, I have been recruited into the company's service as a collector, and I would be working in India. I have been born and brought up in Britain. I hardly know about the Indian culture. I hardly know about the geography of India. I hardly know about the climatic conditions of India. I hardly know about the culture of India. But still, I have to serve the Indian people. So my efficiency would not be up to the mark. But suppose if I'm an Indian, okay, and I am recruited to the civil services, I know the culture of India. I know the food and eating habits of the people of India. I know about the rural India and the urban India. Getting the points clear? I know the policy framing techniques which needs to be adopted in India. Why? Because I am aware about the grassroots reality of India. Getting the points clear? That is why this person, William Bentinck, came up with Indianization of public services. Getting the points clear? So that the administrative burden could also be reduced. Administrative expenses could also be reduced. So this is all about Lord William Bentinck. Getting the points clear? So I'll repeat, William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. He started Thuggy and Dacoity Department to suppress the thug and appointed a special officer for that, whose name was William Henry Sleeman. He reduced the salaries of the officer. He, abolished the system of double batta, that is incentives that were given to the soldiers. Okay. He signed Indus Navigation Treaty and he introduced lot of judicial reforms. He laid the foundation of Calcutta Medical College and he laid down the foundation of Indianization of public services. Hope so the points are clear, my friends. Yes, Sarfaraz, you have a question that why is still India a member of Commonwealth? Now see, Commonwealth was basically created on the principles which were governed by Britain. And since all the countries that are associated, majorly I'm talking about, not all, since majorly the countries associated in the Commonwealth are based on democratic principle, and India's principles of democracy have been majorly derived from the Britain. That is why India is still a part of Commonwealth. Hope so, Sarfaraz, I have answered your question. Then, Shweta, you have asked me a question. Thugs are plunderers? Yes, thugs are also the lutera and plunderers. Okay. Siddharth, you have asked me a question about administrative burden. Please repeat the question. Yes, friends, did you understood William Bentinck? Please let me know. Did you understood William Bentinck? Now, how come the question come in exam? Getting the points clear? Let us understand the question. Rohilla War occurred during the tenure of which Governor General? So Rohilla War occurred during the tenure of the first Governor General of Bengal, that is Warren Hastings. Okay. Then, which Governor General is also referred as Lord Moira? So it is Lord Hastings. And please mind my words, friends. Warren Hastings and Hastings both are two different personalities. It is not one and the same. Okay. Then, Indus Navigation Treaty came into effect during the tenure of which Governor General? So it was the first Governor General of India, that is Lord William Bentinck. Which was the first vernacular newspaper of India? It was Samachar Darpan. It was in which language? It was in Bengali language. It was introduced during the tenure of which Governor General? It was Hastings. Okay. Zamindari system or permanent settlement of land revenue settlement came during the tenure of which Governor General? So it was during the tenure of Lord Cornwallis. Rayatwari system came during the tenure of which Governor General? Getting the points clear? This is how the questions are asked in the exam. Hope so the points are clear. There have been ample of time the questions being asked on Governor General in the UPSC prelims exam. Hope so the points are clear, my friends. Yes, circuit courts are basically the local courts. Getting the points clear? These are the local courts which are adopted in the local zones to settle the disputes in a very fast manner. Like presently we have Lok Adalat. Getting the points clear? Basically their purpose is to settle the dispute in a very steadfast manner. Similar was the role of circuit court, but still it was a sort of administrative burden. Getting the points clear? Hope so the point is clear, my friends. Okay. So this is the end of the session, my friends, today. Okay. On Sunday, next Sunday, okay, I would be conducting a small mock test on ancient India on the Unacademy platform. If you like my lectures, please use my code AKOUS. I repeat the code AKOUS. Okay, guys, thank you and have a very nice day.